Big story time. Let's get started here on a Monday. See, Newberg's School Board, they're set to vote again on its ban on the Black Lives Matter and pride flags in schools. And now they're lumping in everything else, right? They're talking anything that they deem controversial or political or even quasi-political, which sounds like pretty much everything, but that's what they're voting on. It's almost certainly going to pass. And the school district is almost certainly going to be sued over the ban. Both the ACLU and the teachers union in Newberg have promised to take them to court over this. But tonight, let's not talk about that. I want to put the vote aside and what's happened and focus instead on what's happening in this small community that's been thrust into the national headlines. Let's hear from the kids for a change. And we've heard from plenty of adults, so let's hear from the kids who testified at last week's school board meeting.
It is extremely insensitive and disrespectful to take down flags that represent a minority group of people. It shows a lot of ignorance to think that banning those flags is going to make the problem disappear.
It's horrendous and unacceptable. A simple pride or BLM flag in a classroom shows the love and acceptance that we need. Pride flags can literally save someone's life, and you're just going to take that away.
The Pride and Black Lives Matter flags are not a want, but a need. So many of my classmates go home that do not support them for who they are, and their safe place is at your schools. Taking those flags away, you are abandoning your students.
The passing of these resolutions are not wins for you. They threaten the safety and livelihood of thousands of children under your care. The consequences of your actions will be on your hands. The blood of my peers will be on your hands.
Man, I mean, those are some serious words, but there's some serious stuff going on in this community over the past several weeks even. There was what we're showing you on the screen right now, this social media slave trade where black students were targeted in this mock slave auction that was going around on Snapchat. There was a staff member at an elementary school recently who showed up to work in blackface to protest the vaccine mandate. I mean, that sentence doesn't make sense at all. Adults who graduated from Newberg schools, they say they weren't safe either during their time. S. Renee Mitchell, she's a Pulitzer Prize nominated journalist who graduated from Newberg High School in the 70s, and she wrote a column for the Oregonian over the weekend that we think is worth your time. She wrote, quote, "I remember rocks being thrown in my direction as I walked between buildings at Newberg High School. Thumbtacks were left on my classroom seats. Students regularly lined the hallways near my locker to hurl an almost daily parade of racial insults. I also remember willing myself not to cry as an older football player punched me while my homeroom teacher and classmates watched. I was 14. So we talked to the mayor of Newberg about all this stuff. He says he doesn't think the racist incidents we've seen over the past few weeks are isolated and chalked it all up to a problem with education.
Is there a racism problem in Newberg?
There are racist incidents that occur and have occurred. And it's not just isolated to these recent instances. There have been instances over the years. I'd like to think that they're isolated and that they're handled, hopefully, quickly and appropriately. But generally, I do not believe there's a racism problem here. But I think there is a question that education, and of course, we're back to the school board, and I think education is hugely important. I think that's shown by arriving in blackface, referring to Rosa Parks. The slave trade. I think we have an opportunity to really try to help educate people that may not know as much as they might about some of these very difficult issues in our history.
So he says the city is working on a few things. They have some diversity initiatives. There's a task force and listening sessions. But honestly, the city can really only get involved to a certain point. I mean, the school board is a separate entity from the city. And as it stands right now, this ban is going to pass in the school board. But before we end this segment, we wanted to make a note of some of the ways that students from other schools have been supporting the kids at Newberg. After all, at the end of the day, this is about students, the way they are learning from this, the way they are reacting. Let's take a look at some of the stuff that we've seen. Students, for instance, from Tigard, they went to their football game against Newberg last weekend with pride banners and Black Lives Matter signs. These photos are from Ryan Clark with the Newberg Graphic, a reporter who's been covering this story from the beginning. The football team from Tigard took a knee to support Newberg as well, and a senior football player stood up and told the adults that if they don't like it, they can leave.
All we expect is that you let each of us perform in an environment of safety, tolerance, acceptance, and respect. We call it being a star. This means not threatening or ridiculing anyone in attendance based on their race, gender, age, color, national origin, ethnicity, disability, sexual orientation, or religion. If you can't meet these expectations, you could potentially be banned from this and future interscholastic events.
Of course, we're going to keep our eye on Newberg in the coming days, as we have since the beginning of this. And if you have a story or an idea or something that you think we should be considering as we cover this issue, please email us at thestory@kgw.com or use the hashtag HeyDan on Twitter.